Want to get started with our BuildOps and Sage Intacct presentation today. We're going to talk about the product and the integration that's available between those two products. So we'll get started here. So we've got our agenda today is we'll do introductions for the participants, and then we'll talk a little bit about BuildOps, and then we'll actually go in and show you the product, detailed demonstration, and then we'll step out of the product and we'll talk about integrations. And then we'll actually show you the integration between Sage Intacct and BuildOps. And then we'll go through a Q&A process. So today, really there's two of us that are working the keyboards for you today. My name's Glenn West. I'm the head of growth here at BuildOps. I come to the party with probably 30 years of experience, 15 years with a company called Timberline, and then 15 years as a value-added reseller in the market, working with the Sage products, including Sage Intacct, but also with products like Procore and Red Team and CMIC and PM Web, service applications. And so a little bit different focus than just one set of products. We'd moved into more of a best in breed approach where we look for products for our customers. I joined BuildOps about a year ago. And the goal here is to help work with our integrations and with our partners as we go. I'm joined by Justin Weatherby.
Yeah, everybody, really appreciate your guys' time here today. My background is in construction. I've been a project superintendent, project manager, estimator, and I made the jump to construction software about 10 years ago and been focusing mostly on the implementations of construction software percent. So I'll be walking you guys through the product today and answering any questions that might be coming up.
Okay, thanks, Justin. We'll just jump right into it. So I want to give you a little background on who BuildOps is. We are an ERP, an operations ERP software built specifically for commercial specialty contractors. We aren't a general contractor package that got switched over. We really have started since day one to focus on the needs on the commercial specialty side of the house. We really look at a couple areas, service and maintenance on one side of our house, and then project management on the other. And then within there, we also, in that single platform, we also handle things like dispatch and scheduling and time capture, but all really driven around the operations side. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see we're about 10 modules. We start as far back as quotes from a CRM perspective. We'll work our way through service agreements, dispatching, reporting, project management, and accounting integrations, as well as mobile, which we'll show you today. BuildOps was founded in 2018, so it's a newer product, veteran-owned and backed by several large investment firms, so we're very well funded. But the technology that we use is state-of-the-art because we're such a new company. We are only using the top tools. We have no legacy to worry about, so that's one of the great things you'll see with the product as we go. So why would you want to go with BuildOps? I think the main reason is we're an operational driven system. So we are looking at increasing your efficiency, increasing your profitability, making sure your workflows are as easy as possible for your staff, making things mobile. So we're trying to help you from an operations perspective. We do have integrations to accounting and they are important, but we feel that really your business is controlled out of operations. That's where you make your money. And that's where we can help you most with this. We also think in the changes in the marketplace. We know there's a labor shortage in construction right now. We know there's potential talk of recessions, and those are times where we have to be very focused on profitability. We have to be focused on functionality, ease of use. We want to make sure we maximize the efficiency of the applications. So with that said, we're just going to jump right into the product. Justin's going to give you a run through. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And Justin, you can take yours now and go with it.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and jump in, and we're going to talk about a few different areas of the product today. We're going to start, as Glenn kind of mentioned at the beginning of the process, with quotes. Now, what's nice is my folks out in the field, they can actually come in and give me a list of items that need to be quoted as they're doing walkthroughs out in the field. If there are certain things that they discover during that process that they need to add in there, they're able to go ahead and take care of that right from the field. And that information is going to come back to us in the office. And from there, we're going to be able to review that information and draft it into a formal quote. So let's go ahead and pop one of these quotes open. We're able to not only just create the quotes and email them off, but we're also going to be tracking the life cycle of those quotes. So when I create one, it's going to go ahead and start as a draft. I'm going to put in the high level information for quote title, version title, who sold the quote, what is it due by, things like that. Also, on the customer side, who's going to be receiving that quote. And then I'm going to pop into our scope and pricing tool where I'm able to come in and add line items to my different line items to my quote and price out the different components, whether that's like labor and material, and then adjust my markups as I'm building out these different quote line items. And what you'll see over here on the right is our profitability calculator, where we've got our total amount quoted, cost, estimated profit, markup, and margin. So basically a full suite for creating your quotes and then tracking them. Now, even though in our system, we may provide a lot of details to help us build out the quote, it's up to you to decide what level of detail you want to provide to your customer. So if you just want to show them the totals, you can do that. If you want to go ahead and show them all the individual line items, you can do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click generate quote here. And what it's going to do, it's going to take the information that we entered on the previous screens and put it onto your template. So the template that we're looking at here is just an example. This template will match your guys' current quote template, but we're going to be auto-populating information. So, the date, the company, who's it going to, what's the subject, and then also the different line items on the quote as well. Being able to see, what those line items are, how much, and then the grand total. What's nice about this is even though it is going to be formatted as a PDF, I can actually edit this as if it were a Word document. So if I need to come in and copy and paste information or add or remove exclusions, I'm able to do that on the fly. So it acts like a Word document, but it is what we would call a live PDF. So giving you all that functionality for formatting in a format that you guys are really familiar with. Now, once you are able to, you can go ahead, or once you're ready to, you can go ahead and email this out of the system. You can include any number of attachments, the message of the email, and then we'll sort of kick off tracking the status of those quotes. If I jump back here to my quotes table, we'll see a number of different statuses. When I first create it, it'll start as a draft, and then I'm able to email it out of the system, and the status will be switched to sent to customer. We have a tracking built into that email, so we know if they've opened the email, it'll be email read, and if they actually open the attached quote, it'll be customer viewed. And with this information, you can then start pulling together reporting to help direct your sales team on the actions that they need to take. Maybe you've sent a couple quotes out that the customer hasn't opened yet. We're going to give them a call and follow up. Or maybe I've got a couple other quotes out there that the customer's viewed it, but they haven't approved it yet. So I'm going to give them a call and see if they've got any question on the pricing. Now, once I get these quotes approved, I can actually take an approved quote and create a job. And once I create a job from this quote, I'll be able to dispatch it out from the system. Now, our dispatch board by default is going to take you to a day view. So what we're looking at here is the hours of the day across the top, and then my technicians down the left-hand side. So all of the work that's queued up that needs to be scheduled is going to show up down here in my unassigned tab. So I can pull up this unassigned tab and grab one of my open jobs and then drag that onto the dispatch board as needed. Find an open time for my technician and drop it down there. Now, when that when we go ahead and schedule that, the technician has a mobile app where they'll be able to see what their schedule is. And we'll take a deeper dive on the mobile app side here in just a second. So there's a few major revenue streams that we see a lot of service contractors, or I should say specialty contractors, utilizing. One would be like smaller quoted jobs, T&M jobs. Also, another big one is going to be reoccurring maintenances. So within our platform, we're able to create service agreements. And within those service agreements, we can set up a cadence for that maintenance. So in the case of my example here, I have a minor quarterly maintenance where we're going to go out and change belts and filters on these 3 RTUs. So once a quarter, it'll automatically create me a work order that I can then dispatch out and have the technicians perform that work. But also within the same agreement, I do have a major or an annual maintenance where we're going to execute a couple checklists on these different assets. Now, within each of these maintenances, I can actually create forms for my folks to fill out. So in this example, when I see C checklist, I'm actually able to come in and create a custom checklist and assign it to this maintenance for my technicians to get those filled out. Now, as those maintenances become due, they'll start populating on my maintenance dashboard, where I'll be able to have an overview of maintenances that are completed, scheduled, overdue, or even ones that are unscheduled. And if I wanted to, I could schedule them right from this screen and create a visit for my technicians, or I could go back to the dispatch board and schedule it directly from the dispatch board. So lots of different ways we can get in and keep track of these and make sure that they're getting knocked out before they become overdue. Now, another major revenue stream for our commercial trade contractors is going to be large projects. So besides the service work, whether that's quoted service work or T&M service work or even preventative maintenance agreements, we also are able to handle your large projects. So within our project management module, when I jump in, I'm going to see a list of the projects that I'm assigned to as an end user. And if I pop open one of those projects, we're going to see that we can track things like RFIs, requests for information, track them through their different statuses, change orders, and understanding which ones are out for approval, what's my revenue, cost, profit, and margin on my approved change orders, as well as my outstanding change order dollars. Now, a lot of times on these larger construction projects, we're going to be doing progress billing. And a lot of times, if I'm doing progress billing, there may be a requirement that I use an AIA type application for payment. So if you guys are familiar with that AIA G702, G703, we're able to do that within the system. And from the change orders, once they've been approved, I can actually add those into my schedule of values. So when I come in here to create a pay application, I'm going to see not only my original schedule of value line items, but also those approved change orders as well. And for every billing period, I can come in and update the work completed this period, and I can do that either as a percentage or I can do that as a dollar amount. So kind of up to you how you want to get those filled out. Now, when I jump back into my pay applications, I'll just show you a quick example of a pay application that's ready to go. So in this case, we're going to have our cover page with all the necessary information, followed by our continuation sheet. So we've got both of those components in there. If for whatever reason you're not using this type of pay application, you can also just forward off a regular invoice based on those entries that we made as we're filling out our progress. Now, besides the pay applications and the document control that we talked about, we can also track our cost budgets as well. Now, this is totally customizable, so you may not use all of this, but in my example, I've got our job broken out into phases. So I've got, floor 1, floor 2, floor 3 is my different phases, and I can expand those to see the cost codes within those phases. So floor 1 has a rough-in, ductwork, and install, and I can even dive in one level deeper and see the cost type. So I've got labor, material, and equipment that all roll up into rough-in, and then install, ductwork, and rough-in that roll up into floor 1. Now, what's nice is I can toggle the way this is being grouped. So if I would like to look at it by cost type, I can toggle on cost type and see my cost types along the left-hand side, and then dive into where those dollars are going down below. Besides just looking at this from a perspective of dollars, I can also take a look at this in the perspective of hours. So same sort of breakdown, except instead of looking at it by budgeted dollars, we're going to be looking at it versus budget versus actual hours on that front. And we'll jump over to the mobile app here in just a second and show your team how they're able to fill that information out. Now, besides the change orders, RFIs, and submittals, we also have a file folder system within this project where you can create different file folders and have those automatically added to projects as they are created. Now, you can create custom folders as well per project and assign what type of user has access to these different folders. Now, in the case of something like signed contracts, I probably don't want to give that information to my folks out in the field, but things like maybe approved submittals or answered RFIs, that might be something that I want to pass along to them. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look at the mobile app here. We'll go ahead and get this pulled up on the screen. So what I see here is a list of the projects that I'm assigned to. I'm going to jump into that Jefferson High School project. I'm going to be able to see those file folders that we talked about before and any of the information there. I can also create or receive against purchase orders that we've issued out in the field. But the big thing that I want my folks out in the field to do is fill out a daily work report. My daily work reports are broken up into a few different sections. I've got notes, custom forms that I can have the guys fill out, crew time, equipment, materials, and subcontractor info as well. Now, the notes section's got a few different buckets of notes. I've got work completed, delays and issues, out of scope work, safety concerns, etc. And all of these sections work the same, where I can pop these open, use the talk to type feature to fill out those sections, and then also add photos either from my camera roll or take photos on the fly. Besides the notes section, we've talked about forms a few different times. I can have any different number of forms available for my folks to fill out in the field. So if I pop one of those forms open, if it's like a checklist, something like that, I can go in, check the box, fill in the blank, that sort of stuff. And then we can also capture signatures on these forms as well. Really flexible. These are totally customizable and super powerful for different aspects of reporting. The next section I want to show you is crew time. So on these larger projects, I can either have individuals fill out their own time, or I can have a foreman fill out time for his crew. Now, on the service side, typically we'll just have individuals filling out their own time. But on these larger projects, I may just have my foreman as a user and have him track the time for the rest of the team. So when they come in to create these time entries, they'll select what workers that they had working with them that day. They'll also be able to come in and put in like start time and end times as well. So, if we started at, let's say, 7 a.m. and wrapped up at 3:30, I could record that. And then also, depending on your location, it may be a requirement that we track lunch. So we're going to say we took lunch from 12 to 12:30 today. From there, I can then allocate my time to different cost codes that are on this project. And we talked about this work breakdown structure a little bit before. So I can jump into my different phases of the job and say, hey, we worked on rough-in today, but we also worked on floor 2 install. Once I have those cost codes selected, I can then allocate time to those different cost code buckets. Now, one of the things we wanted to focus on today was our accounting integration. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here and kick it back over to Glenn to talk a little bit about the integrations and why we might want to utilize those. And then I'll get into specifically demonstrating that integration and what that looks like. Glenn, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Justin. Go ahead and share my screen again. And you should see why integrate. That's what we're going to talk today. Today, we're specifically talking about Sage Intacct and BuildOps. So just a little background on Intacct. The Intacct product was purchased by Sage in 2017. At that time, it had already established itself as the leading provider of accounting financial management software that were cloud-based. That was a big component that was important for us. Intacct's a preferred provider by the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. They have tens of thousands of customers utilizing this SaaS solution. And the important piece here too is they're also a leader in connected cloud solutions. So they've built their platform understanding that there are multiple systems out there and they need to be able to connect to them. So the BuildOps solution is utilizing their set of APIs. It's available in their Sage marketplace, which is where they advertise and they highlight their partners. So for us, it's incredible that they are that open, and we've built on top of that for this solution. But why would you want to integrate? So you've got two best of breed solutions out here. You've got a phenomenal operations project management system. You've got a phenomenal accounting solution that's out there. So we want to make sure that those two systems are talking to each other. It's going to allow you as a customer to really focus on the impact that revenue has on the operation side of the house and not necessarily have to have a single solution. In those cases, you tend to have not the best in both solutions, but a solution that does both. So we're really looking at enhancing your growth opportunities out there based on customer service that you're providing, and also looking at the investment you have in Sage Intacct, or will make in Sage Intacct. We're enhancing that, providing a solution that is built on top of that. The BuildOps solution is an operational ERP, which just means we're focused on the operations side of the house, and we look to Intacct to be our accounting solution. And so the integration is maximizing both of those investments for you. Here's just an example of the touch points we have in the current integration. They're single direction in some cases. They're one side to the other. They're also bi-directional in some cases. We've developed this from customer feedback, kind of a best case scenario that you can look at. We can actually take data out, move it into other systems like a payroll service, and then bring it back in. But I've highlighted a couple examples for you. When we start the integration, we actually look to Intacct to pull base financial data into the BuildOps solution. So things like GL accounts and item accounts and dimensions that you may use in Intacct, payment methods, projects, project types. That initial pull or that set really is setting the relationship or the integration. And so we'll pull vendors and customers, and we'll pull jobs, and we set that integration point as we go. From an operational perspective, every time you enter data that's related to both systems, our integration is looking at what's in the system. An example here is vendors. We both have vendors, and then you can drive your vendors from Sage into BuildOps. But we also understand that as we're processing transactions in the operation side of the house for potentially new purchase orders and vendors that we have, purchase receipts, we can actually set the vendors up in BuildOps. The system recognizes it's a new vendor, and we'll go and set it up in Intacct as well. And so we'll drive that vendor into Intacct for the Intacct approval process. We also do things like purchase orders. we're running the project, we're running a job, we're doing purchasing, we're doing receipts of material from an operations perspective. We recognize that that PO needs to end up back in accounting. So as you are processing that inside BuildOps, either a PO or a receipt, we'll send that PO to Sage Intacct for final processing. Same idea here is an accounts payable bill. This is where it becomes kind of unique, is if you we do the PO inside BuildOps, we have the ability to take and match the AP bill in BuildOps, do a three-way match, and we can send the AP bill over to Sage Intacct. Some of our customers prefer that accounting transaction of accounts payable bill to process through the accounting system. If that's your preference, you can take that accounts payable bill, you can match it to the PO that was initiated in BuildOps and sent to Intacct. And then once you've approved that bill, that the integration will send the bill back to BuildOps so that we have access to see an approved transaction that's out there. So you get a little control over how and where the data flows, but ultimately we want this to be seamless. So there's no timed nature to this. There's nothing you have to execute. You're just processing transaction normally. And when you post, the system recognizes the integration and the system will send the transactions in whatever way makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to switch this out now. And Justin's going to show you a couple examples of this so you get an idea how easy this is to use and how seamless it can look to your end users. So Justin, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing.
All right, beautiful. I'll go ahead and pull up my screen. So we'll just illustrate a couple of the touch points here between the two softwares. One of the ones that Glenn brought up was customers. Depending on sort of your guys' workflow, we may need to create customers on the fly in our operational platform because this is somebody new that we haven't done business with before, but we have some work that we want to get scheduled. So if I come into my list of my customer list within BuildOps, I can go ahead and create a new customer. We'll go ahead and just give it a name. We'll call it, ABC Healthcare. There's some certain fields I need to fill out, for the type of customer it is. Maybe like an email address for their AP. So we'll just say ap@health.com. Which price book do I want to assign to them? So I can have a number of different price books within the system, and I can assign those to them so they have the correct labor and material markup rates. Also, I want to go ahead and make sure that we're getting the billing to the right person. So we'll say attention AP on that. And then what's the address of this customer? What's nice is it uses it's powered by Google. So as long as I just start typing, it'll go ahead and let me start filling this information out. If there's a tax code associated with them, I can pick their tax code or have it auto-populated based on the address. Also, there's some custom fields in here as well that we might want to utilize, but we'll go ahead and just save this customer up. And what happens is it's going to be doing this syncing back to the customer list in real time in the background. So in the case of creating customers, I don't need to go in and put in any additional information or click a button to get it to sync. What I'll do here is I'll pull over Sage Intacct, and we could take a look at that. So I just did a quick search for ABC to pull up all the any of the contacts with ABC in there. And down here at the bottom, we can see that ABC customer from New York. That information has come over. I could still make edits to it if I needed to and add some additional accounting properties. And I can also edit it within BuildOps as well and sync those edits back down. Now, besides the customer, another big one that we see a lot of is going to be the invoicing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually jump in and create an invoice for this customer. So we'll just say it's for ABC Healthcare. What department is it coming out of? We're going to just say it's out of sales. Got a couple different options in here. Let's go ahead and say it's for sales. And then once I create this invoice in BuildOps, I'll have the opportunity to add different line items for, like, let's say labor, something like that. So we'll just say, this is our labor item. How many of those? We had 4 hours at that weekend rate. Now, if I'm if I'm running this through the BuildOps process end to end, for T&M work, the labor and material will automatically populate here based on the information that my technician entered. So I don't need to come in.
I think Justin may have dropped out there. What he was saying is it doesn't need to necessarily come in here and put in. Sorry, Justin, you dropped there for just a second.
Okay, yep, no problem. I appreciate that, Glenn. So let's go ahead and we'll add one more line item in here for material. We'll call it miscellaneous material. We'll grab one of our items here and give it a quantity. Now, if I've got like a customer PO number that they provided, I could add that in there, even a customer work order number. And then once this looks good, I can go ahead and email it out of the system. And then I can also export this invoice into back into Sage Intacct. And we'll take a look at this one here in just a second. The other major touch point is going to be for purchase orders. As Glenn mentioned before, we have a three-way match on those purchase orders. So we can look at orders that have been fulfilled, ones that are partially fulfilled versus fully fulfilled, and be able to receive against those either in BuildOps or even in Sage if I needed to. So let's go ahead and pull up Sage Intacct, and we'll take a look at a couple of those entries. So I'll go into my order entry here, and we'll go into BuildOps sales order. And we'll go into that invoice there. Right, so we can see those invoices syncing down from my accounting package. If I come in to pop one of these open, I can see some on there,
I think Justin's
now. So again, this happens mostly in the background, and so it's it works out really well that we don't have this extra layer of manual entry that we need to do on this side. Glenn, was there anything else you wanted to add on the integration side before we wrap up here today?
No, I think what's important on this screen is when you look at the entries and you look at the subtotals, we are bringing over data that is detailed. So if you're utilizing a dimension, we'll bring that data. We sync our parts, so we'll bring that data as well. So you get a lot of control over how the data moves between the two systems, and we handle that so that it's real time.